Okay, hello everybody. My name is Jérôme Poisson. I'm the initiator and the main developer of the Libervia project. Sorry for my strong French accent. I hope that you can understand me clearly. If not, just ask me a question at the end. Okay, so what is Libervia? Libervia is a universal communication ecosystem. So why universal? First of all, it's a project where we try to have every communication tool you would like to have. So instant messaging, of course, but also blogging, forum, file sharing, photo album, audio, video call, etc. It's handle state-of-the-art end-to-end encryption. We will talk about that later. It's decentralized, so that means that you can have several instances that can communicate together. It's based on standard. It's based on the XMPP standard. It's multi-frontend. It works on desktop, on the web. So desktop version is a native desktop version. It's not Electron. It's a real native version on command line, on text, on terminal interface. It's multi-platform. It works on Linux. On the web, it works obviously pretty much anywhere. There is a prototype Android version, and Windows version will come probably this year, and in the future we think also about Mac OS 6 and iOS version. It's open source, it's HGPL v3 or more, and it's customizable. So to give you a rough idea of how it looks like, I took a few screenshots from the web interface. So this is the chat. There's been a lot of work in this version, so this is it gives a good idea, but it's not a definitive look and feel. It will improve. There's still feature which will be added to this one. There's a blog engine, so everything you can expect for a usual blog engine. You can use XMPP to make comments. You can also use ActivityPub. We'll talk also about that later. We have events, two kinds of events, either personal events similar to Google Calendar when you can handle your appointments, meeting, etc. Or more elaborate events where you want to have a picture, you want to send invitation, you want to have the number of attendants. In this case, Libervia is also able to handle the invitation and to have administration interface. There is a list feature which is quite original in the instant messaging world. About list, it's basically any kind of list. It can be a to-do list, it can be a shopping list, it can be something more advanced like a ticket system. For Libervia itself, we use a list feature to handle feature request and bug report. On this screenshot on the right, you can see also the invitation system. It's an easy invitation system, so you can just write a name and give access permission or publication permission. And there is also a way to invite people outside Libervia or XMPP by using a special link that you can say by email or anything, and people can then join whatever feature you want, list or a blog or anything. Okay, there is a file sharing component. So when we talk about file sharing, we not only talk about the usual file sharing you have on your messaging application. There is a component where you can send file, upload them, have a permission access when you say only a few people can access, or have a public HTTP link that you can send to anybody. You have optional end-to-end encryption. You can send a large file in peer-to-peer. If you want some gigabyte file and you don't want to go through the server because it's too big, you can send directly to a file. It can overcome firewalls, and you can have also optional quota if you want also people to have only access to a few gigabytes of data. Based on this file sharing feature, there is a photo album. Classical things. Again, you can easily invite and have permission, and you have slideshow and everything you would expect on this kind of feature. Okay, let's now talk about privacy. Libervia is using a state-of-the-art end-to-end encryption. It's using an algorithm which is called OMEMO. OMEMO is basically the XMPP version of the same thing you have in Signal or WhatsApp. The only thing is the first iteration, the one you have in most of XMPP clients in the world, was only encrypting the body of the message. That means that all the metadata around reaction or metadata to say you want to retract a message or anything is not encrypted in current version in the world. So the XMPP community made a new version, OMEMO 2, where you can encrypt basically anything. And Libervia was the first XMPP client to implement it thanks to a grant we received from NLnet. And to date, to my knowledge, there are only 3 clients we does that, Libervia, Dino, and Kaidan. But of course, we are compatible with the legacy version, so we can encrypt with any other client. And we also implement OX. OX is another way to do end-to-end encryption. Basically, it's OpenPGP for XMPP. It has different properties for OMEMO. To give you a simple example, imagine you are in a company and you have a new hire. With OMEMO, the newcomer won't have access to the history of the messages of the company, but you may want that they have access to full archive. In this case, OpenPGP give you access to the full archive. Actually, in OMEMO, it's a security feature, but in some cases, you may want to have access to history of a message or anything else. Libervia is also the only client, XMPP client to date to do PubSub encryption. PubSub is basically the feature that you have behind everything which is not instant messaging. So for blogging, you can do a private blogging with optional end-to-end encryption if you want, for lists, etc. In the case of our bug request feature, it can be interesting if you have security bug report when you don't want that the details are in the wild. In this case, you want to use end-to-end encryption. So it's something that can be useful to encrypt anything. And we have also PubSub signature, which is a way to say who is the author for sure of anything, an item, a blog post, an element, etc. Currently, we have received another grant from NLnet and the European Commission Next Generation Internet to work on audio-video implementation. So at the moment, there is one-to-one call with a single person which is working with the web front-end, and it will come in desktop and other front-end soon. And it's in the coming months, it's planned to implement desktop sharing, multi-party calls. To make it simple, there are 2 ways to do multi-party calls, one with a small number of participants and one with a higher number of participants, which is basically the same thing that you have in Jitsi Meet or similar software. And it's also planned to implement remote desktop control. So the same thing as VNC or TeamViewer. So it's a way to send keyboard or mouse events and control a device with all the authentication and encryption that you have in XMPP. So the idea is to have all in one with a similar look and feel, etc. So now, let's say that you have installed Libervia and you want to communicate with something else, like Signal or WhatsApp. Thanks to XMPP and the wider ecosystem, there are some software which are called gateway, which translate XMPP to another protocol. There is one which is recent, 1 or 2 years, which is really good, doing tight integration of modern feature like reaction or contact list integration, which is called Sledge, and it's under Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. And there are other gateways that I have listed. And Libervia itself has implemented ActivityPub to XMPP gateway. So what is ActivityPub? ActivityPub is a protocol which are behind popular software like Mastodon, that you have probably heard a lot about Mastodon with what happened with Twitter in the last year. Mastodon, Pleroma, PeerTube, which is an alternative to YouTube, Mobilizon. And so thanks to this gateway, any XMPP software can communicate with any ActivityPub project in both directions. And the goal of this is to have a smooth integration. So for the end user, it's mostly transparent. Public message on Mastodon are translated to XMPP blog post. Private message are translated to chat message. So you can have with conversation, snippet, or any chat message that you may want to use. Okay, now let's say that you want to adopt Libervia, but you want to have a look and feel of your association inside, or to develop specific feature for your specific use case. Libervia has been built from the ground with extensibility in mind. Everything is plugin. So you can make a plugin either in the backend, which will work with any frontend, or one specific to one frontend. But the web frontend in particular is built around a powerful theme and template engine. Basically, the web frontend is an application it's a web framework based on XMPP and Libervia, and you can do any kind of feature with that. Imagine you are in a school and you want to make a special feature for a special chat where a teacher can have a mathematics workshop with a student. It's totally possible to use the web frontend and to start from the current chat application and update it to add what you need. And there is also a tight integration of Python, so you can do calculus, graph, and stuff like that. I've talked about standards. So Libervia is using XMPP, which is a rock-solid standard, which has been there for 20 years. It's extensible. It has evolved with time. For instance, with the arrival of smartphone, it had new features which to handle that. So to give you an idea how it is important to us, this is a list of the extension that I have written myself. So why we do that? First, because we have access to the whole ecosystem of XMPP. So as you saw with Gateway, it's already interesting, or with other software. It's also important that people can see how the features are working, and so they can also implement in their own software. And the really important thing is there is no vendor locking. So if you want to adopt Libervia, but in 1 or 2 years, for whatever reason, you want to try something else, you won't have to do any import or export, just use something which uses XMPP, and all your data are on the server. You have nothing to change. You can just use another software. It will work out of the box. So it's really important and interesting to use standard. Okay, so at the moment, there's been a lot of work for this version. Most of the code has been written, and we are there's still some stuff to do, but it is a stabilization phase. I expect to have the next release 0.9 to come by the end of the third quarter or before the end of the year at least, with the ActivityPub gateway and the audio-video call. It has been mostly a single-person project to date. I'm the initial author, and we have built an association around it, but I've been with contribution by the main developer and constantly for 15 years now. And now the goal is to move to something sustainable. So thanks to the grant we have received the few last years, I can work full-time on it at the moment. But the goal is not to build some kind of company, ethical company. And the idea will be to offer software as a service. So we could manage administration, support, and everything, and people could have a working option out of the box, or to do customization, theming, and these kind of things. So there is a potential to have decentralized, end-to-end encrypted, trustworthy, open source solution with a team behind it and supporting and maintaining it. So who could be interesting by Libervia? You, for yourself or for your friend and family. It could be association, it could be school or universities. It can be really interesting to make communication between teacher and parent or with students. It can be public services. For municipalities, it could be interesting for internal communication or for having a public announcement or to talk with a citizen, a company, big or small, anybody could be potentially interesting. So to conclude, Libervia is an all-in-one solution, is free software, is based on standard, is decentralized, is privacy focused with state-of-the-art end-to-end encryption, is compatible with third-party network, is feature-rich, and highly customizable. If you want to help, we are more than welcome with any kind of contribution. It can be coding, of course, but it can be also design suggestion, it can be translation, it can be documentation, it can be just testing the software and giving us feedback. It's really useful. And any also financial contribution, big or small, will be also useful. As I said, the goal is to have to reach sustainability and to build a team, a solid team to maintain and to have something trustworthy for companies. So thank you for attending. Here are some important links. First one is the official website. You can see the roadmap, there with a high-level idea of what will come in the coming months. My personal blog, where you can see every 1 or 2 months a report of what I'm working on and what will come. And my blog is available on ActivityPub thanks to the gateway and on XMPP and by RSS and Atom and usual stuff. We have the XMPP room, and I'm also on Mastodon, so you can follow my account and ask me anything, and if you want to have some news. So we have 3 minutes left if you have any questions, so let me know. And thank you for your time.